March 13th of 2022 will be the 2-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's death as a result of a Louisville Police Department raid looking for drugs and drug trafficking evidence. At this point now, at 2 years in, only one person standing trial. But it's not for Breonna's death. Let's talk about it. Hello again, everybody. My name's Sean Martin. I'm an attorney out of Cleveland, Ohio, and I focus on criminal defense work. Today we're going to talk about the case of Detective Brett Hankison. He is the only officer that has been charged in the entire series of events that led to Breonna Taylor's death. But as I stated before, it's not for anything concerning an attempted murder, assault, and or murder of Breonna Taylor. It's for his actions involving other people. Now, before I get too far, we should probably go back and cover some of the basics. On March 13th of 2020, Hankison was part of a 4-man unit raiding Breonna Taylor's house for evidence of drug trafficking and or drug possession. There were some allegations that she was friends with people and had ex-boyfriends who were involved in drug trafficking and other criminal activity, so the officers got a search warrant. This warrant was going to be executed in the middle of the night as part of a no-knock warrant, which means the police would not identify themselves until they hit the door. So on March 13th, the police showed up at Breonna Taylor's apartment in the middle of the night, and they hit her door with a battering ram. As they tried to enter, Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, used his legally purchased and legally possessed handgun to fire at who he believed were home intruders. There was no identification done. The police did not tell anybody who they were. And it's clear the fact that Kenneth Walker was not prosecuted for anything shows the police likely did not do a good job of identifying themselves. That single shot fired by Kenneth Walker hit one of the officers in the doorway. As a result, that officer and the other officer with him fired a total of 22 shots into the apartment. Of those shots, 6 hit Breonna Taylor. Only one is believed to have killed her. Brett Hankison is the third officer. He fired his weapon 10 times in response to the shooting. But unlike everybody else involved, Detective Hankison was on the side of the house shooting through a covered glass door. From what I've been able to put together at this point, it's clear none of the rounds Officer Hankison fired either struck Breonna Taylor, Kenneth Walker, or came close to striking either Breonna Taylor or Kenneth Walker. So those rounds just sailed through her apartment into the next apartment. Now, why did that happen? Well, it's an apartment building. How thick are the walls? They're not that thick. Pieces of drywall with some 2x4s in the middle for studs. Obviously, you've tried to put a nail in a wall to hang a picture. It doesn't take much force. Well, imagine a bullet going 800 miles an hour through that drywall. There's nothing to stop it. Thankfully, the 3 people in the apartment next to Breonna Taylor were uninjured, but they did have bullets come through their apartment while they were sleeping. Well, I'd like to give Officer Hankison some doubt that he used some sound tactical processes when he fired those shots. I'm assuming it was a little more like this. As a result of those shots nearly hitting the 3 people in the apartment next door, Officer Hankison was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment, which is a felony in Kentucky and carries a potential sentence of 1 to 5 years for each count. The trial begins tomorrow on February 1st, and Officer Hankison stands innocent until he's proven guilty. But let's look at the facts that we know of, and let's try to figure out, does he have a justification that we can articulate right here and now? The first thing Detective Hankison could try to claim is self-defense of himself or others. The issue is, if he tries to claim defense of himself, he has to show that he believed he was in reasonable fear that he faced imminent death or serious bodily injury, and that he has lethal force to stop it. But he has to show how that happened. Now, we haven't seen his body cam, and I'm not sure if he has one, but if he does, you're going to have to see some evidence. Just a loud bang isn't enough. If you remember, he's behind a glass door. So is there any evidence of glass shattering? Or did he happen to see a flash? Anything that might tell him he might be being shot at. It's not clear that that happened. Instead, it appears as though he heard a shot, heard that his teammates were injured, and began shooting, which most likely makes him having to claim defense of others. And that is a valid claim for self-defense. Defense of others, defense of a third party. Here he can claim he was defending his teammates and fellow officers from the shooting. Now he can claim he heard a shot, he can hear that one of his teammates was injured, and then he can say, I acted with reasonable force to protect them. The issue for him is going to be to show he acted reasonably, because as far as the evidence I've seen, it's not clear that any of his shots that he fired were ever close to Kenneth Walker or Breonna Taylor, which shows that he may have been blind firing into that apartment, which is not reasonable. It's reckless. It's wanton. And if he really did do that, then yes, this is a proper charge for him. But do I think he's going to have a very hard road ahead of him to prove his justification for using deadly force? Yes. Do I think it's impossible? No. There's always evidence we haven't seen, there's evidence we don't know about, and that can always change the tide. But based on what I'm looking at, it's going to be a long, hard road for him to get clear of this. Well, that's it for today, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, comment our questions below. I will not be able to cover this if it's being streamed live due to my schedule this week, but I will do a recap every day. And remember, until next time, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.